All right, let's get to our panel today. We have Natasha Alford. She is the senior correspondent for The Grio. That's a news organization geared toward the African American and Black community. We are also joined by Mara Gillespie, who is the founder and principal of Blue Stack Strategy, a communications consulting firm. Good to see you both, ladies. Natasha, let me start with you. Former President Obama and former First Lady Michelle trying to thread this needle to not only make the case that Harris is different than Trump, but in a sense, she should be considered different and distinct from Biden, that she is actually the change agent. Take a listen.
And he wants you to think that you'll be richer and safer if you will just give him the power to put those other people back in their place. It is one of the oldest tricks in politics from a guy whose act has, let's face it, gotten pretty stale. We have seen that movie before, and we all know that the sequel is usually worse.
Something wonderfully magical is in the air, isn't it? Yeah. You know, we're feeling it here in this arena, but it's spreading all across this country we love. A familiar feeling that's been buried too deep for far too long. You know what I'm talking about. It's the contagious power of hope.
Natasha, do you think it was effective outside of the walls of the convention with voters?
Rahel, I think it was electrifying. I think that people were at home nodding their heads. They were saying, this is what common sense sounds like. I'm sure that people were comparing and contrasting and saying, how refreshing is it to see American leaders not just standing up there, spewing insults, tearing people down, demonizing the other, but really opening up their arms and saying that all are welcome. I really was struck by the message that said, even if we disagree, there's still some space for common ground. And I think that is what was so different. It was so refreshing from what we have been hearing over the past year with this very partisan and divisive campaign. But what I heard also in both of the speeches is that Kamala Harris is ready. She's not only qualified, but she has the character to do the job. She knows what it means to work hard for something, and notice the themes of not whining about losing, not trying to undermine democracy in order to win. I think all of those things were effective, and they resonated with so many Americans who just wanted somebody to say, let's return to common sense and a sense of common decency.
So, Mara, if you were advising the Trump camp, what do you do in this moment? Obviously, the Obamas tend to be brought in as the party heavy hitters. What's the response?
Really, it's a matter of, can they get Trump to stay on message? And they've been trying recently to get him to stay on message and to read from the teleprompter and to read the speeches as written for him. And he still, time and again, diverts off and goes back on to tangents that do not help Republicans down ballot. And if I'm a Republican congressman or senator running for re-election or running for office, I'm going to really try and distance myself from the Trump orbit and focus on policy, focus on areas that, it's important to highlight the Biden-Harris administration failures. As a candidate, you're running on the economy, you're running on safety and security, and you're encouraging Republicans to come out to vote down ballot, because I think that's really, for the Trump campaign at their convention, there were so many opportunities to open up the arms and say, Republicans who have, maybe didn't love Trump, come back into the fold. Here's why. Here's how we can get you back in. And they didn't do that. And unfortunately, I think that that's really where they're losing. And what the Harris-Walz campaign is seeing is this opportunity to appeal to those voters. And I agree with Natasha that what former President Obama said, don't let one disagreement or one issue detract you. You're not going to agree with somebody 100% of the time. That's just not reality. But if you can find some ways to get there 80% of the way, that's where you're going to be. And again, when you're faced with the choice of democracy versus somebody who is really pushed against our Constitution, that choice seems pretty clear then.
Well, Mara, let me stick with you for just a moment more. I'm struck by the number of Republicans, and we showed a few of them there, who are at the DNC, not just at the DNC, but speaking at the DNC, working to get Kamala Harris elected. I'm just wondering if you can say more about what this says about the GOP right now and what opportunity there may be, whether now or in the future, to reunite, and what they would need to do that.
Well, I think it sends a strong message that things are not going great in the Republican Party because they left these Nikki Haley voters, we'll call them, but really it's the moderate Republicans who are not here for the Trump tangents, the juvenile behavior, but also his refusal to, conduct a peaceful transfer of power. I mean, there are some serious flaws that we could go, at length about when it comes to Donald Trump. But what I would say for the Republican Party and for those voters who don't want to vote for either Trump or Harris, you don't have to. The split ticket option is there. But also, if you chose to vote for Harris, that doesn't negate the fact that you're still a Republican. You can vote for Republicans down ballot for your House, for your Senate, for your local school board, your mayor. Look down ballot, the things that are going to impact you day-to-day life directly. That's great. It's okay to vote for somebody else at the top of the ticket. It doesn't stop you from being a Republican. We're not going to, unfortunately, Donald Trump did say, if you're not supporting me, you should be kicked out of the party. Well, here's the fun fact. That's not how that works. He can't do that. So you're still a Republican. I'm still going to be a Republican. You don't have to vote for Donald Trump to maintain that status.
Well, let's end on a more humorous note, the roll call. This is usually a pretty routine event. Some might even call it boring, but take a look at this year's DNC roll call.
On behalf of the great state of Delaware, home of our beloved 46th president,
the proud governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the great state of Tennessee, birthplace of rock and roll.
I'm here because I'm jazz as hell.
from the great state of Nancy Pelosi.
It is our honor to unanimously cast our 34 votes.
178 votes.
72 votes.
94 votes.
California, we proudly cast our 482 votes for the next president, Kamala Harris.
The Dr. Dre at the end there is what gets me. Natasha, first to you, just your reaction to what Dems are trying to do here beyond just obviously put on a lively show.
Look, how can you not smile at that, right? The millennial in me has so many good memories of dancing to Lil Jon in cafeterias and dorm rooms. But those are the aspects of joy that we're talking about. Joy is not just a campaign slogan. Joy is these things that as Americans we can connect on, right? And I think that that's what they did last night with the roll call, showing that from state to state, even with our differences, even with the little cultural nuances, there are things that we love and we share. And that is the uniqueness and the beauty of America is our diversity. So I thought it was brilliant. Shout out to Georgia. Lil Jon just really shut down the House again. There's nothing like that. But this is what we talk about. Contrast that with the RNC. Right? It was not as diverse. Many of the people who were brought out who were supposed to represent diversity didn't actually have deep ties to the communities that they were supposed to be representing, right? So it just felt authentic. It felt real. And again, the larger message of the Obama's speeches last night are that democracy is not just about one person. There is no one hero or perfect person who's going to come in and save everything. We all have to come together as citizens of this country to make it the great country that it can and should be.
Now, let me just correct myself, because actually that was Tupac at the end, not Dr. Dre. I heard Dr. Dre earlier. So before somebody calls me out on Twitter, I know it was Tupac. I know. Natasha Alford, Mara Gillespie, good to see you both. Thank you.